Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Pre-Singles Counseling. This is part of my Pre-Singles Counseling coaching curriculum where I design lessons and case studies based in the psychology literature on different topics. This Pre-Singles Counseling is targeted to three types of individuals. The first individual is a person who is interested in becoming single. That means that person is not necessarily interested in dating or entering the marriage market. The second individual is a single individual who is interested in entering the dating market. And then the last individual is a single dating individual who is interested in marriage. So take some time to listen to this lesson and or case study. Please leave a comment and I will reply. In addition, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you are interested in further topics. This is Pre-Singles Counseling, a Pre-Singles Counseling coaching curriculum. Thank you for visiting the channel. This lesson is subject to fair use, where I will comment, criticize, offer research, as well as teach and provide scholarship. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to do the following. So you will be able to define the mating market. You will be able to explain the differences between the sex market and the marriage market. Discuss how personality creates a competitive advantage in the mating market. List example of social scripts as if then conditionals in the mating market. And then eventually define mate poaching. Single women should be knowledgeable about the mating market as bifurcated into the sex market and the marriage market. Both men and women engage these markets. Because women have what men want, they are considered the gatekeepers. However, men have what women want, which is commitment. They too are the gatekeepers. Single women should understand that there are more women in the marriage market than men. There are more men in the sex market. Lastly, the mating market is a competitive environment, which leads to mate poaching, and that perception of value is relative. What is pre-singles counseling? Pre-singles counseling is based in a decision to enter or exit singleness. Pre-singles is the time period between single and contemplation of dating. There is a difference between being a single individual and being a single individual who has entered the dating market, which includes the sex market. Pre-singles counseling is the processes by which an individual researches, learns, and plans to navigate life either as a single, a dating single, or a single interested in marriage. So here are some pre-discussion questions I want you to consider. What is the mating market? Have you participated in the mating market? Are you an extrovert? Do you have the personality to compete in the mating market? What is mate poaching? So let's begin. The mating market is bifurcated between both the sex and marriage markets. So sex is a social exchange. It is not not considered necessarily a private exchange. Once you enter the sex market or the marriage market, is considered a social exchange. So there are marketing principles that govern how individuals exchange within the mating market. Men tend to be drawn to the physical pleasures of sex than women. So women often want the expression of love, whereas men just want the momentary impulse, or they want to fulfill that momentary impulse, which leads to sex. Women have what men want, but women are the ones who often determine when men get sex. Men tend to want sex more, and they tend to be more sexually permissive. However, they tend to also be slower to commitment. So when you think about what women want, They want commitment. What men want, they want sex. Also, women tend to change their minds about sex. So you may have an individual who is interested in competing in the sex market and willing to undergo that sexual experience, but they can also change change their minds as well. Typically, unmarried women tend to go longer without sex. So when they do decide to enter the dating market or the sex market, they are sometimes unaware that sex is part of being in the sex market. I know a lot of people like to think that, well, I just want to wait. I just want to wait, and I shouldn't have to have sex. And that is true. You could decide to wait if you want to, but there are consequences to that decision as well. You may not get many partners. You may not be perceived as competitive enough, right? Unwilling to give over yourself sexually. So, um, women do tend to change their minds in the sex market. So, the reason why we really have a sex market is because of the invention of the birth control pill. It used to be that people just married, especially when it came to, shotgun marriages, right? But because of the birth control pill and its introduction into society in 1960, we soon realized that pregnancy could be prevented. So then, if pregnancy can be prevented, then that leads us to think, well, we can have as much sex as we want, right? And that's why we have these sort of competing sex markets, because you have individuals who can now engage with the knowledge that they can either use a condom or they can use birth control. Whereas in the beginning, it was sort of understood that you would get pregnant if you had sex, right? And now, if we want to prevent that, we can just use contraception. Also, men and women engage the sex market to varying degrees, and what I suspect that means is, um, you may have multiple sexual partners. You may escalate that to the next level. Yay, one sexual partner could turn into maybe like a long-term partner, right? So both men and women tend to engage in sexual intercourse to varying degrees. So what is the marriage market? There are more women in the marriage market than men. And then, of course, there are more men in the sex market. So there are more women, contrary to what people think, women do really want to be married. And you know that to be true because when they do engage in the sex market, they begin to plan out their lives with that individual, even though the individual is not aware of it. I've always said that a woman started planning for her marriage when she was little, when she married Ken and Barbie. So, as much as women sort of flood the sex market today because of maybe feminist ideals, or just a desire to be in the sex market, by the time they have snagged a man and taken him to the house, they've already planned the marriage, or they've already planned a long-term partnership with that person. They plan how the person is going to live at the house, um, contemplating if they're going to give them a key. They start washing, they start cooking, they start doing all the types of wifely things that you will see a wife do. Um, this means that what happens, because there are more women in the marriage market than there are in the sex market, this usually deals with age. So women tend to drift into the marriage market because they are willing to pursue marriage, maybe because they want to settle down. I don't think people really want to live their lives in the club. And so they are more willing to drift into the marriage market simply because they are just ready to settle down. Men and women drift from the sex market into the marriage market due to awareness of biological clocks, sexual preferences, long term needed fulfillment, and the desire for stability. And I think the term stability is actually more important because the more you go in and out, in and out, in and out of the sex market, it makes you unstable because then you start believing that you can convert this person, and then it turns out that you can't convert that person. Then you have to go through the depression of not being able to convert that person, and that affects you, your mind, your body, um, your emotions, your psychology, especially your finances. So I think people tend to drift into the marriage market because they don't want to live their lives simply unstable. As much as people like to be free for the day, live, free for the day, they still want stability. They still want to know that when they come home from work, there is someone there. So let's get into the personality of the mating market. So those types of people who might who might enter the mating market, and I only want to focus on one of the big five personality traits, which is extroversion. So personality traits create a competitive advantage in the mating market, and you know this to be true because sometimes you will hear men say, um, "She can be beautiful, but she has a bad attitude," right? Or she's average looking, but she has a great personality. No matter what, personality does create a competitive advantage. No one wants to go home to a mean person, and no one wants to go home to a person who doesn't talk. I mean, if we're going to be together, we need to engage each other in conversation. I've always said I do prefer a person to have a college degree because I have one, because it helps in terms of conversing with someone. But you also have a lot of people who do not have college degrees and are very intellectual and can converse and expound on multiple topics. That's fine with me too. But it would be difficult to be with a person who has no conversation, who has no worldview. So that person, I would focus my efforts if I was entering the dating market. I would focus my efforts on intellectual conversation, not snootiness, not snobbery, but just a worldview. I'm not looking always for attractiveness, which is important, but I'm looking for your ability to talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's engage, you know. Um, so each person has to determine what is a competitive advantage for you. Some people want the person to look like the beauty standard. They want the person to look like a 9 or a 10. I can understand that. That may not necessarily be one of my major qualities that I care about. I do care about the personality. That person cares about attractiveness. I care about the personality. All humans have an opportunity to participate in the mating market and thus can enjoy gains from capitalizing on their individual differences. So you are as competitive as you perceive yourself to be, but you are also as competitive as the other competitors see you as well. So extroversion is that personality trait that I was going to discuss. So it is basically scored on both high and low extremes, and it often determines your impact on sexual access and fitness. It is one of those big five personality traits. And just a quick note, big five personality traits. So if you look at it like this, NEOAC. N as in Nancy, E as in Edward, O as in O, A as in apple, C as in cat. And so N refers to neuroticism or anxiety. E refers to extraversion, and we're about to get into it. O refers to openness to experience. A refers to agreeableness. And then C refers to conscientiousness. And you can type in as a keyword big 5 personality traits, and you can find that information also on the internet. So extroversion, let's look at the high versus low domains. So if you tend to score high in extroversion, you are affectionate, you are a joiner, talkative, fun-loving, active, and passionate. So you will see more sexual permissiveness with the person with a high extroversion. But a person who might not be interested in marriage, you might see them as a low extroversion, a low extrovert. So then the low would be reserved, loner, quiet, sober, passive, unfeeling. I sort of fit under the low when it comes to relationships because I'm a loner. But when I'm outside of the house, I'm very talkative. I'm not much of a joiner, but I can be the type of person that you would enjoy yourself with. But these are the high low domains that if you took the big 5 personality test, you would you might score under some that are high and some that are low. So a high level of extroversion increases access to potential mates and subsequently increases access to sexual frequency. So that means if you want to get married, eventually you're going to have to come out of the house. But it depends on what you want to do in the sex and or marriage markets. So if you're not the type of person who wants to have a high body count, then you might join clubs at your church or maybe go to alumni meetings or something like that, because you're trying to increase your chance to marry, but you're not trying to increase your chance to have a whole lot of sex before you get married, right? The high extroversion person really doesn't matter to them whether they care about the access to sex. That's the whole idea for them, is to have access to sex. Finding a potential mate just depends upon maybe choosing a lot of different options, and then later, deciding that I'm only going to choose these 3 to 5 women to date, right? Extroversion would translate to higher sexual frequency for males over females. So most women are not going out and building up a sexual body count. We usually see that in men. So extroversion, I think it's a very good personality trait to determine what you are basically willing to do as a strategy. It's very important that you don't wear your body down. And I say that in a lot of my audios, make strong, wise decisions concerning this, because you could be out there dating for 10 years, dating 10 partners a year, and maybe having sex with 3 to 5 of them. That's a big body count after a while. And so extroversion, really think about that high-low domain scoring. Low extroversion may signal an unwillingness towards partner investment. So usually men, even though men know women want commitment, they tend to hold back commitment, even though they still want sexual access, knowing that women determine if they obtain sexual access. So oftentimes men might be high in extroversion to get access to sex. And once they get access to sex, they pull back. And so they become low in extroversion. High extroversion may signal promiscuity and risk-seeking behavior, which is important to understand, because here you are in the dating market and you're trying to take it slow, but your competitive partner over here is really going fast. Well, you might run into a person who might expose you to an STD. So really getting an understanding of how that person operates in the sex market is very important, because you got a lot of people out here in the sex market passing diseases on purpose, and that's not something that you want to do. So now that we have a good understanding of personality and then the mating market and the sex market, let's look at mate poaching. So we want to look at sort of like the social scripts, those implicit rules about how to govern yourself in the mating market, and then how people tend to compete based upon attractiveness. So let's recap for a minute. Today's mating market is no less dominated just by men. Women can openly pursue sex, and we talked about that in terms of the birth control pill. Women are the sexual gatekeepers. They do invite, but don't forget, men are also they are also gatekeepers in terms of offering commitment. Norms and rules still favor men's interests over women. So as much as we think we are competitive in the sex market, men's interests still rule, because they still have what we want as well. Again, remember that the marriage market, the mating market, is bifurcated into two domains, which is sex and marriage. And then women today, and men, of course, can participate in both markets. So the social scripts, there are 4 types of social scripts, and we're going to look at the first 2. And these are based in the strategy of if-then conditionals. So there's the relationship initiation. So scripts govern social behavior in dating. Okay, so a man sees a woman at a bar, the woman smiles, he smiles, there is attraction. We will call that today choosing signals. Like the woman is at the bar, she's looking at the man, and she's sort of choosing who she thinks she might want to engage in the sex market. So that's relationship initiation. Attachment related. So scripts determine if a person can be relied upon when needed, and whether to approach or avoid a partner when distressed. Attachment is basically, it falls under attachment theory, which is secure or insecure attachment. And what attachment essentially is your relationship that you had with your parent or caregiver, whether it was a secure attachment, meaning whether you could depend on that parent. If you cried, that parent or caregiver responded to your cry immediately. Or an insecure attachment, where if you cried, the parent or caregiver maybe ignored your cry or let you cry too long, right? You might have those parents who say, I just let the baby cry to sleep, right? So when you are thinking about attachment related, it's clear that if you meet somebody for the very first time, you're going to develop an attachment. It's just obvious. But you might be in over your head if you think that person is your boyfriend the very first date, right? So you have those types of situations. If you are dating, you are dating, period. If you both come to a discussion about converting the dating into some sort of relationship, then you could question your attachment, if it's real, if it's growing, if you are going too fast or going too slow. So the third social script is destiny and growth. So those are scripts that dictate expectations, reactions, and conflict in romantic relationships. That means we have already moved from a dating situation to now a romantic relationship. And again, you determine how long that relationship is. I don't know what that is for you, but there comes a time when there are expectations. If you go to a club, you expect yourself to, govern yourself, right? And then, of course, if you meet somebody, but if you go out on a date and the person was supposed to meet you at a certain time and they didn't, that's something that you should take note of, because especially if they don't have a reason behind it. And if they don't have a reason behind it, that tells you about their character. I don't care how good looking he looks. I don't care how appealing he looks. It's not a good idea to continue in a situation where the person does not value your time, let alone value their own time. And then marriage proposal. So scripts determine the elements of a valid marriage proposal. That means that person has actually proposed, not he's my boyfriend and I know we're going to get married. That's not a marriage proposal. So these are your scripts for your if then conditionals. So then once we understand that implicit rule, those social scripts, we can now understand how mate poaching plays a major role in the dating market, especially when it's competitive. So based upon social scripts, translated as don't approach my man or my woman because he or she is with me, mate poaching reflects violation of implicit rules and norms. So think about it like this. Here it is. You are with your man or you are with your woman, and you have already established that you are both in a relationship, right? Because usually people don't mate poach if you are just you just met somebody in the club, right? Sometimes it might happen. All of a sudden the man comes to ask you to dance, and then maybe another man, an alpha male or high value male sees, oh, what is he doing with her? What is she doing with him? And might decide to step in and say, hey, can I dance with this girl? Right? That happens. But I think we're really talking about those types of relationships where there is a declaration of a relationship and one partner tends to be more attractive than the other. People in the current mating markets are open to mate poaching because provided that there is a true social exchange and equity, and when the potential mate is more attractive and wealthy. So a lot of times, you know how you hear these concepts about a person being average, a person being a dime piece, and then a person being with a wealthy individual, and that person doesn't look like the beauty standard. Then another woman comes along and tries to steal that person um, away from you. So that happens also based upon attractiveness and wealth. So this is translated as if he can do so can I. Mate poaching then is defined as attempts to attract someone who is already in a relationship. That's very key because the mating market is very competitive. Today the marriage market is very competitive because you have married men going after single women. So that means they are leaving the marriage market and entering the dating market, the sex market, to pursue sex with single women. You also have single women pursuing relationships, literal relationships with married men. And so mate poaching is that attempt to attract someone who is already in a relationship. And I don't know why people do this. It may have an attachment issue. It may have a fear-based issue. I really just don't understand why people would. After all these, there are so many people in the market. Why do you have to go after someone who is married? Mate poaching is based upon social perception of attractiveness. So usually, when it's based upon perception of attractiveness, and this goes with the ranking. Men tend to rank women more than women rank men. So when men look at other men, they base it on attractiveness, or if he's high value, if he's alpha male, if he's a beta male or whatever, right? So when the boyfriend is unattractive, female partners considered more attractive in a romantic relationship are subject to mate poaching attempts. Men will mate poach an attractive female based upon her beauty and based upon their belief that she is not committed to her unattractive partner. So they have already made up in their minds that the partner you are with is average, is not, similar to them in their status, and that they are not worthy of you as sort of like a high value, global standard female. So it becomes their task to mate poach. And this is something that you have to think about, because if you are interested in entering the dating market, this is what you have to look forward to, because you may be an attractive individual, but there may be another attractive individual who is more attractive, who fits a different type of global standard. So you may be with a man who is higher in value, and all the women across the room are looking at you and wondering, like, how did she get him? And as soon as they ask that question, they are already contemplating a strategy to get near you and sort of introduce themselves to your man, whether that man is your date, whether that man is a long-term partner or a marital partner. Research results reveal two things based upon social perceptions of highly attractive men and less attractive men. So here's the difference. So when the boyfriend is attractive, so we just looked at when the boyfriend was unattractive. So let's look at when he is attractive. A highly attractive man will not mate poach with a romantically involved woman when she is paired with a boyfriend who meets her attractiveness. He will not mate poach if she is alone. So if both men are types of men who are big ballers, shot callers, they won't mate poach each other's interests. I rarely see one football player go after another football player's partner, romantic partner, right? I rarely see a high level global standard female with a high value partner go after another high value partner with another woman that fits the global standard high value as well. So it's almost like some people say pretty people hang out with pretty people, ugly people hang out with ugly people, and never the two shall meet, right? So you hardly ever see highly attractive men mate poaching their respective mates. Less attractive men, however, are different. Less attractive men tend to derogate a highly attractive woman when she is paired with a less attractive boyfriend, a response that is consistent with a self-protective risk regulation response to a romantically available woman, right? So it's less attractive men tend to be more insecure. So then I talk about this in other audios. They will use cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors. So their goal is to keep you as a mate, but they understand that they are less attractive to their highly attractive counterparts. So they will use sexual jealousy. They will tend to monopolize your time. They might use a number of strategies to keep you in a relationship when they know that you are a highly attractive woman who might be mate poached by a highly attractive man. So as we conclude, let's look at the advantages and violations, sort of like a recap. The mating market is a competitive environment. It offers advantages for both men and women, even though men's interests tend to take a greater priority. There are violations in the mating market which results in mate poaching. Just because one person perceives a partner as unattractive does not mean that the current partner perceives that same person as unattractive. However, attractiveness is relative. So you might like your partner, but other men who are competing in the mating market might see your partner as less attractive, which might lead them further to mate poach. Certainty with marriage is not relative. There are two clear mating markets, and people should be certain within which one they desire to compete. So I wanted you to enter a YouTube discussion. So if you've gotten this far into the lesson, I want you to think about mate poaching. So I have some questions for you to consider. So, given the nature of both sex markets and marriage markets, have you ever mate poached? Have you ever walked up to a particular person in a club context or any type of context and tried to take that person away from someone else? Did you mate poach in the sex market or the marriage market? Knowing what you know today, would you mate poach? And then I want you to add your comments after this video so you can respond to any one of the questions here, and I will leave the questions also in the description box. All right, so hopefully you were able to gain insight from this video discussion. Please like, subscribe, and visit. So please like the video, hit the notification bell for more discussions. I am re-uploading all of my audios, so I needed to make some changes to them. You can visit my website for more content at reginayfavors.com. If you want to send me an email, you can send an email reginayfavors@yahoo.com. Please also purchase the book. It's going to come out in spring 2021. So I had to make changes to my book to update it, and I also updated the title. So the original title was Bait, Hook, and Switch: Confessions of a Rebound Girl, and I have updated the title to Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships. So right now I'm still basically editing it, and I want to make it available in spring 2021. So thank you very much for visiting my channel, and I am Regina Y. Favors. Have a great day.